Who? Was not Prophet Brian Karn caught in the middle of his own scandal and found out by the woman who stuck by him? Vashti Ennis did rather than just spill tea. She poured out the whole kettle, and what she said is shaking the church world. There have been private talks, shocking voice notes, and claims that could end Brian Karn's ministry as we know it. But what's the truth behind the news stories you're about to learn? Family, put down your popcorn because this isn't just a rumor on the internet. Prophet Brian Karn is one of the most controversial people in the modern prophetic movement. This is a full-on expose of him. You thought the news stories were bad? Just wait until you hear what his girlfriend, Vashti Ennis, had to say. You can know that she won't hold back. We are going to dig deep into the messy relationship between Prophet Brian Karn and Vashti Ennis in today's explosive report. From secret records to accusations of lying, manipulating, and betraying people, a lot has happened. This is the kind of truth that has been buried for too long. It's not just about their relationship either. This story shows us more about the secret lives of spiritual leaders we thought we knew and how power works in the world of prophets. You are going to hear the bills. We have speech clips, timelines, and reactions from people in the church and other insiders who have been talking about this for months. And just when you think you know everything, Vashti's story has a twist that even we didn't see coming. We've also talked about some crazy stories on this channel. Wait a minute, because we're about to break it all down in full. You will never see Prophet Brian Karn the same way again after watching this movie. We need to know how Brian Karn got to where he is now before we can talk about the shocking expose and the leaked voice notes. We need to know how he built his platform, got thousands of fans, and got into a relationship that's now public in the most chaotic way. Brian Karn was not like most preachers. People called him a prophetic genius because he moved up so quickly. Even as a youth, he was already going from state to preach words from God that amazed crowds. His fame spread very quickly, especially in churches that were looking for miracles, true predictions, and charismatic energy. Prophet Karn was setting up churches under the Kingdom City Church name and filling up auditoriums by the time he was in his late 20s. Also, don't act like he didn't have any power. His ministry was followed by gospel artists, preachers, church mothers, and even famous Christians. Many people were drawn to his spiritual confidence, but some thought it was also cunning. But his name was important. But there was a quieter story going on behind the platform and the camera flashes. It didn't have a stage or a microphone. Now, this is where Vashti Ennis comes in. It was clear that Vashti wasn't just an odd fan or a churchgoer living a dream life. She was a close friend. Some people even called her a spiritual partner, someone who was there for Brian Karn through the good and bad times in his work. There were rumors going around about how they were dating. Did they know each other emotionally, date, or get engaged? No one was sure. They didn't let anyone see it. But Vashti was in the room, which was her own space, the room away from the camera, and now she wants to talk. As of now, Vashti has come forward to give her side of the story. It all started with whispers. And based on what she says, the prophet might not have done what he said he would do. But now things get complicated, and when Vashti finally spoke out, she did so with proof, not just general claims. Voice recordings, private texts, and timeline receipts are what we're talking about. The question now is whether Brian Karn was really in a serious relationship or whether Vashti was just being lied to the whole time. Who did she LA? As for what the prophet did behind closed doors, Vashti says it was very different. Vashti's voice shakes with anger and sadness in a voice note that has gone viral, as she talks about how Brian Karn supposedly promised love, loyalty, and even marriage, but he always changed his mind when she was about to tell the truth. She was his helper sent from God one minute and was stopped, ghosted, or told to trust the process the next. His words, "The people wouldn't understand," meant nothing more than that they wouldn't understand. She said it was because he wasn't ready to face the truth. During times of deep spiritual abuse, she said Brian used scripture, prayer, and prophetic language to make her feel confused and upset. He would call her his divine rib, but he would also say that they were just friends in Christ. Vashti said that clash of ideas broke her down over time. The best part is now here. This wasn't just playing on their feelings. Vashti showed text messages and what she thought were photos that showed Brian Karn having similar relationships with more than one woman at the same time. It looked like some of them didn't even know that the others existed. Vashti said that Karn told her to keep quiet so that God could handle things behind the scenes in a video clip that went viral online. Vashti says that as the months went by, all she saw behind the scenes was lying and avoiding her. Do you remember what I said about getting married? Vashti says that there were talks about the future and when she would become First Lady. But she says it was all talk and no action. She says he didn't really mean what he said. it was just a way to keep her mentally tied down while he kept up the image of a single prophet who was available. This is where things get more complicated. She said that Karn stopped being nice to her and spiritually encouraging once she started to question things. Instead, she said she avoided her, laughed at her, and engaged in what she called emotional warfare. I'm speaking now because the pain I carried in silence became too loud, Vashti said in a recent podcast appearance. I protected him, I covered him, but I lost myself in the process. She went on to say she's not out to destroy Brian Karn's ministry, but she is holding him accountable because, as she put it, ministry without integrity is just manipulation dressed in a robe. And you thought that was the worst of it? Now this is where the internet broke loose. Up until this point, Vashti's story was already raising eyebrows, but it was her decision to release a private voice recording of Prophet Brian Karn that set social media on fire. And listen, this wasn't just some vague audio or out-of-context clip. This was direct, emotional, and revealing. In the now infamous voice note, allegedly recorded during a private moment between the two, you can hear Brian Karn's voice sounding frustrated, controlling, and dismissive. He says things like, "You're doing too much. I can't have you messing up what I'm building. You need to stay in your place until I tell you otherwise." Stay in your place? Messing up what I'm building? That didn't sound like a man of God speaking to a woman he respects. That sounded like a man trying to silence someone who was getting too close to the truth. The audio goes on to reveal what many interpreted as a clear admission of emotional control. Prophet Karen can be heard warning Vashti not to go public and that the people wouldn't understand how ministry works. It was a shocking moment, one that completely contradicted the public image of humility and spiritual leadership he projects. And the backlash? Who, baby? Churchgoers, former ministry members, and even fellow pastors started chiming in. TikTok, Instagram Lives, Ubi panels, you name it, everyone had an opinion. Some defended Karn, claiming Vashti was bitter or trying to destroy a man of God, but others, especially women who had followed Karn for years, said, and it didn't stop there. Several anonymous accounts began surfacing, some claiming to have dated Karn themselves, others accusing him of using similar language, especially with women who were vulnerable, seeking spiritual guidance, or involved in his ministry circles. It became clear this wasn't just about one bad breakup. This was a pattern of behavior finally catching up with a man who had built an empire on prophetic gifting, but possibly lost sight of personal accountability. Then came the silence. After the leak went viral, Prophet Karn's social media accounts went eerily quiet. No statement, no denial, no clarification. His usual live streams were postponed, his sermons went cold, and in a digital age where silence equals guilt to many viewers, the internet took that as confirmation. To make matters worse, a few pastors and influencers who once associated with Karn quietly began unfollowing him. A few issued subtle statements about protecting women in ministry and holding spiritual leaders accountable. While they didn't name names, the timing spoke volumes. And Vashti, she didn't back down. In follow-up interviews, she made it clear she released the audio because she wanted people to see behind the curtain, to understand how charismatic leadership can easily cross the line into coercion. When left unchecked, I didn't ask to go public, she said, but when you've been silenced for years and finally find your voice, you use it. And let's be real, when people started comparing the tone in that audio clip to how Karn preaches from the pulpit, the contrast was chilling. On stage, he's motivational and humble. Off stage, at least in that audio, he's dismissive and self-serving. Just when we thought the situation couldn't get any deeper, it did. After Vashti Ennis's explosive revelations and the leaked voice recordings went viral, something unexpected started happening. Former members of Prophet Brian Karn's inner circle began to speak up, quietly at first, then with increasing boldness. What started as a scandal rooted in one relationship soon unraveled into a larger conversation about power, control, and unchecked spiritual authority inside Kingdom City Church and its affiliated networks. And these aren't random people online throwing shade. These are former staff, musicians, admin workers, and even members of his prophetic team who say they witnessed troubling patterns long before the Vashti saga ever went public. One former media assistant who asked to remain anonymous for fear of spiritual retaliation described the atmosphere behind the scenes as toxic and controlling. You couldn't question Prophet Karn. If you brought up something he didn't like or asked for clarity, you were immediately labeled as rebellious or spiritually immature. He created this illusion that everything was divinely ordained, even the questionable things. Another volunteer who worked closely with the ministry for nearly 2 years claimed that Karn had a pattern of isolating people he was mentoring, especially women. According to her, he often positioned himself as their spiritual lifeline, then slowly blurred personal and spiritual boundaries. It starts with prayer calls and encouragement, Then it becomes late-night conversations about purpose and destiny, and before you know it, you're emotionally hooked and too scared to speak out, she shared. These accounts paint a picture of a highly controlled environment where loyalty was expected, not earned, and where questioning the leader, even out of concern, was seen as betrayal. Another jaw-dropping claim came from a former praise and worship leader who said he was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, after witnessing what he described as inappropriate interactions between Karn and several women, some of whom were very involved in church activities. He never spoke out publicly until now. I signed that paper out of fear and pressure, but I'm done being silent. What Vashti experienced wasn't unique, and too many people saw it but said nothing because they were afraid to lose their platform, y'all. This isn't just gossip. This is the kind of testimony that changes the way people view not just Brian Karn, but prophetic culture as a whole. The former members describe a ministry where the line between spiritual guidance and personal control became dangerously blurred, and where Karn allegedly used his prophetic mantle as a shield from accountability. Even more chilling, multiple former female members say they witnessed other women come forward privately with concerns about Karn's behavior, only to be ignored, removed from ministry roles, or publicly shamed as Jezebels. That's a heavy word in church circles, and one used to shut down women who questioned male leadership. But here's what really has folks shook. A source from inside the Charlotte-based Kingdom City Church claimed that the board of directors has received complaints before, but that Karn has structured the church legally in a way that gives him near total control. That means if anyone inside the church raises issues, there's no independent body to hold him accountable. And that's not just unethical, it's strategic. These testimonies confirm that Vashti's story, while deeply personal, might just be the tip of the iceberg. The concern is no longer just about one scandal, but a possible pattern of abuse disguised as ministry. But there's still one major question everyone's been asking. Where is Brian Karn now? Why hasn't he responded? And what is the ministry's official position? By this point in the controversy, you'd expect a public figure like Prophet Brian Karn, who's known for bold declarations and high-energy sermons, to come out swinging. Maybe an Instagram Live, maybe a sermon addressing the enemy's attack, or at least a written statement to clear his name. But no, instead, Karn went completely silent. No post, no live stream, no comment, nothing. And that silence, it's been louder than words. It left many of his followers confused, hurt, and even angry. Some longtime supporters started unfollowing. Others flooded his comment sections with, "Where's the response? And why are you ignoring this prophet?" And for every day that passed without a word, more people began shifting from confused to convinced. Convinced that Vashti wasn't lying and that Karn might be hiding something. But behind the scenes, things were far from quiet. Sources close to the situation suggest that Karn may have activated his legal team the moment the audio leaks started gaining traction. According to several YouTube insiders and podcasters, there were whispers of cease and desist, letters being prepared, and possible legal threats directed at content creators covering the scandal too closely. Now let's pause and think about that. If the allegations were truly false and Karn was innocent, wouldn't he simply deny them publicly? Wouldn't a man of God want to clear his name with truth and transparency? Instead, the first reaction appears to be legal intimidation, not public clarification. But here's where it gets even more strategic. Multiple media insiders claim that Karn is planning a comeback sermon, not a statement addressing the scandal, but a theatrical return to the pulpit aimed at shifting the focus back to the spiritual while quietly distancing himself from all the controversy, essentially ignoring the elephant in the room and hoping the congregation does too. One source close to his Charlotte church told us, "They're preparing a big service like nothing happened. New graphics, a new series, and even a few guest preachers to ease him back in. They want to make it seem like everything is fine." Now, if that doesn't scream damage control, in fact, people are speculating that he's intentionally waiting for the storm to die down, hoping the internet's short attention span will bury the story before it does irreversible harm to his ministry. But the truth is, the silence is only raising mo. He's a spiritual leader with global influence. Thousands follow his prophetic word as gospel. People tithe into his ministry, expecting divine alignment. So when he falls silent in the face of serious accusations, it's not just disappointing, it's dangerous. Because silence and leadership breeds confusion in the body. Worse still, it sends a message to women who might be going through the same thing in other churches that their voice doesn't matter unless the man of God says it does. And let's not forget the psychological toll this kind of public silence can take on someone like Vashti. Imagine telling your truth, watching the world react, and then having the man at the center of it all refuse to even acknowledge you exist. But here's the real twist. In leaked messages circulating in private Facebook groups, there are hints that Karn has no plans to ever publicly address Vashti by name. Instead, insiders say he's preparing a sermon titled something along the lines of "The Attack of Jezebel, when the enemy tries to use your past to cancel your purpose." In other words, he may flip the whole narrative and frame himself as the victim. And honestly, it wouldn't be the first time a high-profile church leader dodged accountability by turning scandal into a sermon